It's about time to start a project that I've been really dreading, but looking forward to at the same time. I have this wonderful roll cage that I've added in support, the rock hard version that I've had in here, I believe since last year, maybe 2 years ago. I think I got this added in 2 years ago. And it's been solid. I got the overhead version, the crossbar here, the rear, the C-pillars right here. And it's a great cage, but it's still not exactly what I want for full safety and reliability on the Jeep with all the stuff that I've been doing. So I have a GenRight cage that I'm about to put in, but breaking this down and welding it in myself is going to be a daunting task, one of the bigger ones I've done. Let's take a look. Here it is. How many of you have seen your Jeep in its birthday suit? A lot of electronics up front, but man, I could run some serious wires right now. This is what it looks like with all the bolt in and out stuff off. So these uppers, that rear cross. This one, it's got these four on either side that I'll probably just drill out so I can take this bar off. I have now been able to go ahead and I cut the crossbar middle first to get it off of there. Then I cut the stub ends here. So obviously I removed the rear seat belt. Now I'm probably going to sand this down and smooth it out. Probably get the weld out of this. It is sealed in there. So if I get this extra little piece of tube out of there, it won't hurt my feelings. But if not, no biggie. And then I came over here and chopped those. Now I have a porta band that I used that worked really well here on this crossbar. But I couldn't fully get, I could get about 3/4 of the way through here, so I just ended up using a Sawzall. I know from watching the videos, well, there really was only one video, you end up having to cut halfway through this, and I'll probably use the porta band for that for a cleaner cut. So we'll see, but like, look how flimsy that is. And that's part of your roll cage on a stock JK. I don't know if you can see that, look. It's crazy. Quick update. Finally opened up the boxes here, got the instructions out, and you need to level the Jeep. So, I mean, depending on where I level it, I could either be on it, off it there, go out in that middle thing. There's a little bit of a hump there. I go here. I mean, I'm pretty good right there. Then I go ahead and check the side-to-side leveling, you know. Wow, oh, that's settling. That's very nice. Very, very nice. But then you check the driver's side, right? And obviously these things can take bends and all that stuff, so it's kind of a pain, right? Like the front and back one seems to be taken perfectly on that. But the side-to-side makes it look like this side is way higher over here, which, I mean, I guess I'm lifting and doing stuff. So in the front, I'm lifting by the axle and not the frame. So there could be a little bit of twisting on that, but so I lifted up my front because my butt's higher with all the weight out by far. And then I just air down the tires to fine adjust this. But so depending on where you're at, supposedly level off your Jeep as best as you can and, you know, cross your fingers. I have been able to go ahead and get this first part in. It's a 3-piece that goes in here. So you can see right here on the driver's side, I had to blast down almost all of that to the end here, it felt like, to get it to groove in and to clear all the way back in the corner. So there's like a little webbing. I couldn't get it with a sander, so I bought one of those, like at the weld things, they have a little, I don't think I have it right here. Yeah, I do. I use this burring tool, about $9 to cut it out, which was great. And then I use a flat disc to go ahead and do this. But this side, the driver's side, was worse. I had to sand down the speaker box, which I had to blow a hole in down here. And then obviously I've blown a hole right here, so I'll caulk those and fill those in. And that's what it looks like here. This was already cut for the rock hard cage, but I just had to do this notching, which is where this little key goes. You get one of these, and then you'll have this piece mounted up and this goes behind it to go ahead and pre-notch that out. So I had to cut a little bit of this off and then this stuff, so this will fit right down in there like that. And this is gonna be that crossbar. I'll show you the other side. These are my pre-drilled holes from my rock hard. Most won't get in the way besides this one. The other bolt right here is gonna be pretty dang close. So let me walk over here to the passenger side. Wasn't really planning on doing a big video, but man, there's nothing online that's like super clear. So this was in a different bundle from the stuff that was in this. So you have like two bundles of junk. You got to open up both to go ahead and get this piece. So this is it bolted in, right? And this is just your template to go and punch holes. Now I was really dumb and I thought, well, I'm gonna go ahead and push all the way down on this so that way it seats as tight as it can, because when it hits, it's gonna compact down here. Well, when I did that, that pushed this super tight in here, which I don't think is what I really want to do. I think I need to have it centered up a bit more and leveled out here. So I am doing both sides. I'll put the crossbar on and then I'm going to level that crossbar out, and then I'm going to go ahead and use this template to go ahead and punch out the holes. It is somewhat leveled up. It's not exactly perfect, but this side's pretty close. The other side's not as good, but the top of these might not be perfect either. So I got it in place, tightened down these two, because these four I already had tightened down. Then I tightened down these two on both sides to lock this plate in to here, this plate, which holds it steady. And then now, I don't know if you can see in there, my hole's a little bit off now, especially down here. And then this thing has four because you only have three per side, but when you flip this over to work the other side, you have to use these two as the bottom and this one as the top. So, but now I can drill holes in a more proper place, so that way it'll be straight up and in line the way it should be. And then I'll be good to go to keep working on that. Once I have those holes drilled and this put into place, it's time to start doing some welding. Let's talk about these A-pillars. All right, couple things I learned real quick. Be smart enough, the template is not the 1/4 inch thick that the actual bar is. So when you cut this out, you're gonna have to go wider. So if you look down, I looked at the metal, you'll see how you gotta cut in more. The other thing that I learned is this little piece right here that you put in first to help align, you never have to take that out. So I should have painted that first, because now I'm going to put together the cage, weld it all in, take it all out, and I'm going to have to take that out and paint it, which isn't too big of a deal, but it'd be nice if I didn't have to. The other thing is on the back side of this piece, there's some caulking, which looks like this, okay? This thing, they say to sharpen it, you really do need to. And then they do opposing sides, so like it's like this on one side, and it's the same on the other, which makes it the exact same. So I liked scraping it on the other side. I was pulling with the flat side down, and it scraped off decent. And then once I ground this down, I was able to do it too. Plus it was hot because I ground it down, so. Template. This template. I could have saved myself some time after I did the set it all and tapped it, is putting this over top of where the dimples were that I made, drill it, and then do it again. On my passenger side, this was, for whatever reason, obviously you're doing it like this, right? But this one, the bottom part was raised away. And so if I would have just gone in there and double checked, I could have saved myself 3 or 4 times wallowing out stuff. So this is the best way to do it perfectly. Not perfectly, but anyways. So those are some of the tips that I learned as far as that goes. I forgot. Use long bolt drill bits. I got these for when I did my other cage. I got a 1/4 inch and the 3/8, which is the size. It happened to be the same size I needed for these. These were 3/8 by 16s. And then I took off these two. You don't need to take off the middle one, plus trying to reset this it sucks. So took off those just so that way I can get in there. Otherwise, this is going to get in your way. You can take this off, but have fun going ahead and getting that hinge in the right spot again. I did that on the other side last time I did the cage, and well, no fun. Let's talk about this a little bit. So as you can see over there, I have my holes drilled and it's cleaned up. I bolted the bracket in place with this bolt and then just drilled straight through the bracket and already painted. But I had to remove this caulking. Same thing I've had to do here, right? And it looks like this, and then I go take my paint and I paint it in there and everything. But on these C pillars, they want you to like fold these out of the way because there's like a little, and it looks like crap. So yeah, not doing that on the other side. And on the bottom, I'm just gonna nip that with a Dremel. Because if you look on this side, like that's all it is, right? Like I'm just gonna go ahead and cut that down the line and make that look nicer and then just touch it up. Because what happened over there looks like crap. So I'll paint these in, get that all done up. This Duplicolor stuff actually dries pretty quick. So it's a lot better than like some rattle can. So I'll do that. I wanted to get these painted before I put it down. And then I learned from these things that I said you can paint before. So the things that are going underneath here, I pre-painted. And also the base plate here, I'm painting right now. Because there's another plate that bolts to the base plate that gets welded to. And that can wait, right? Like, and this will probably need touched up, this one, once it gets... But the underside and everything like that, there's no reason for it to not be painted. Especially the one, because you're going to have a bolt here. And maybe this one it's this one that holds this plate underside in place. So you're not going to want to pull that back out. So pre-paint that. I pre-painted the ones that go in here too. Well, these were kind of a pain in the butt, these D pillars. Just the bracket. What I was seeing online is people were like, oh yeah, these are freaking cake. The A pillars are awful. But, so 3/8 hole drilling this one. So this is the front of the Jeep, this corner one on each one. So that front corner. And then you got to bolt in. But on this passenger side, there's this giant plate in the way. So you got to kind of like reach back in there. It sucks. I did try, and the instructions say that if you're good at reading story problems, but I did try to do two at once and that didn't work out. So do the one, bolt it down. I had to cut, there's like these little white things that hold your plastic trim in. I had to cut them off. Now I'm gonna pull these and paint them and do everything before I do the final install. Where's it at? These things. This was sitting about right here. I had to cut those off and sand them down to make this drop down and fit in. So these got to go on both sides. And then you end up using, on mine, these 3/8 button heads right here that are 1.25 inches. You could use the shorter ones, but I believe the instructions said that. And then they have another little thing that's got these washers and then these lock nuts on here that you end up using. But that was a pain because these are the ones that don't have an inner panel that goes on the inside for these to bolt to. So it's just a nut and washer holding these four corners down. And then you just got to make sure you remove this. But this driver's side was cake. Like plenty of room to go ahead and reach in there. That passenger side is something that'll take some work. I have rough laid out all this tube. There's some really light, and some of these is extremely light, but pretty light laser etching, and the part numbers are where they go. I got to take some more acetone and wipe these all down so that way there's not the grease and oil. I'm going to read on the prepping because what I'll probably do is I'm going to end up removing the whatever it's called. I forget, it's like a varnish or whatever, but you got to, even though they're clean and not rusty, you need to clean that off to get a good weld. So I'll be doing that in all the places that are going to get welded. This one, which is the seatbelt bar, harness bar, That I'm gonna have to probably weld together before I go up. These are two separate pieces. Those will probably go together before it goes up. Same thing as that. So that way it's one long piece to get it in place. But I'm gonna read some more instructions, but take your time, find the marks, clean off the bars if you need to, and then I use this to kind of figure out where it goes. And they have another one of these that'll tell you where all the foot plates go. So that way the tabs line up. I'm gonna take a look at that in a minute. Update time. Okay, so I was able to spot weld the tube in the middle and then weld around the behind the seat bar and then sand it so it's smooth. I have the behind the seat X bar, so those will be going in here. I did what they suggested. I even used 2 angle finders to try to get this straight, but it's, dude, you watch, there'll be a dog in it. I used to do electrical. I hate frickin' when there's a little dog or a little wonk to it. What I should have done, and maybe I just can't read instructions, is I should have just tacked in the inner tube that's in there and then left it loose and put it behind and then got it in there flush. But that's what I'll do on these ones instead. So I'll get the tube that goes in between there in there, tack it in, leave them loose, set them up in there. And once they're in there, I'll put a tack in it to hold it where it should, those two should be in sync to each other. And then I'll go ahead and go all the way around, pull it, go all the way around them, sand them off, and then do the rest. But put in these plates. I've been doing a lot of the prep. I think a lot of the videos just don't tell you, but I've been taking off the, gosh dang it, why do I always do that? My brain just goes off. It's the, anyways, I forget what it's called. There's a word, and it's super easy to know, but mill scale. There it is, mill scale. So that way I can weld it cleaner on there. So I'll tack this in place in this, and then obviously do that. So when I pull the cage, I'm gonna fill those in. But I'll be doing this side, that side, and then I'm gonna go ahead and get that big overhead on there. I decided I'm just gonna paint these and leave these open because, dude, these just feel chintzy. I mean, they go up in there like, and then you just kind of, they should have included the cap that they give you on the B pillar detach thing. But I also don't like the fact that it's a straight cut now instead of like a cut and then downward dog like this. Like, that's how they did on the Terremoto, but now they're just like, eh, and it doesn't look as good to me. So I got to figure out what to do on that. But anyways, because I will chop the B pillars eventually. We have the front A pillars. Sorry, I'm trying to move some of my MIG welder. Tacked in, tack here, tack here. I'll probably put another tack in or do a little bit of a weld before I pull it out. Eventually, a couple tacks up top. Getting this windshield plate to this. This is just held in place. But as you can see here and here, this was a 3-piece. So it had, that was that, and then that. They interlocked, and then there was a tube that went in between that fit super snug. And then what I ended up doing is putting it in and fitting it nicely there. And then as flush as I could get there, marked it, then tacked, brought it down, welded it up, sanded it down to make it a single piece. I won't be doing any of this, I don't anticipate, on any of the other welds because I don't want to reduce the size of the weld. But this is where other stuff's going up. So they wanted it sanded flat, done on both sides. I've already wiped down with acetone to get all the oil and crap that was on here off, and tried to go ahead and get the mill scale off on all the stuff. So that way on these plates, got the mill scale off. So that way when I'm ready, I got to check up on the instructions and tack it back down. But so far, progress. This went in pretty quick. Was able to go ahead and you have to put in this bar and these two at the same time. That in pretty quick. With these overheads tacked in place, I was able to kind of just hammer one, put one side in, hammer the other side in. And then with this one, I actually used a ratchet strap to kind of tighten it and hold it in place. And then in between this and this, tighten that up and then tacked it in place. So we're all tacked up. I'll be going ahead and moving to the next section to go ahead and tack those up, but calling it for the night. Got all this in place. This one was a little bit tight for me to get in. And I mean, obviously there's a little like wonk and heating to the cage that can happen because I try to square up the tub as much as possible, but it is what it is, right? So this one, I ended up having to pop this in first because of how tight this one was. I couldn't get this tab. There's like little slots on the inside. I couldn't get this crossbar in the tab. So I had to get the tab in first to make sure it was set right because I couldn't hammer it in. And then I was able to go ahead and tab this one in. I had to get rid of most of the notch and then strap it, pull it in while I hit it with a mini sledge and locked it into place. And then this one locked into place. And then I just went ahead and tacked that in. Now, as a note, when you start tacking in some of this stuff, you got to be careful where you tack. I didn't think about it. On the other side on that one, I had a tack right where this tube went. And so I had to grind it down so I could get this tube upper bar in over there. So just be cognizant of that. And then the recommendation is to go ahead, these are easy to slide in, to do the bottom pillars first and then do the top. I ended up doing in reverse because I'd read it overall and then did it reverse by accident. But I actually like it better because this one was tight to get in. This one was a little bit loose. Again, I think it's because there's a little bit of wonk, right, that we're dealing with here. I'm hoping that once everything gets heated, it'll kind of settle to where it should be. But I was able to go ahead and get a big strap and tighten that down so that was super tight, get it in there. And then because of that, if I hadn't have done that, I would have been pulling these bars up off the floor and leaving a gap. Instead of going the normal like 4 1/8, I ended up having to go an extra 5/8 on that. But now they sit flush with the floor. So these will be able to go ahead and take whatever extra impact. So I was able to adjust these per how tight I had to make it here. So you can follow the instructions or you can do it like I did by accident, which actually I think is better. That was a bit interesting. So I got these in place and I had to tap that on over and get it in place and tack it. And I'm like, yeah, everything's good, tack down here. And then I look over and this thing's sitting there with like an 1/8 inch gap in between. Now, it's mostly down. It's as far down as I can get it to push down. It's touching in the back. It might be barely hair floating there. It could be this bracket, but anyways, that popped up. So I used a heavy duty strap hooked around here to my rock slider right here, pulled down as hard as I possibly could to sink it back down. The welds just broke against the tube is what happened, the original ones. And so I had to turn up the heat a little bit and really burn on some tacks. Those aren't really tacks. Those are like 1/2 inch welds. And I had to cut the tacks up here so I could hammer it around a little bit, trying to get it to level off. But what a pain. I went against what I was going to do with the center back bar. So a lot of the people I roll with don't put this bottom one in. And I have the tubes to go in here to go ahead and make those takeout ones. But I want to see how much leg room I have with it in. Plus I didn't want, if there was extra pressure pushing outward on these legs, I didn't want to have to try to fit that in there and deal with that, it being too tight to pull them because of too much pressure, having to hit it out and then it sinks in and having to hit it in. So we'll see how I feel about it once the back seats are in, because if there's enough leg room, I'm just going to leave it. It makes it so much stronger. Now that tight seat area is a lot more encroached on. So like seat usually goes to about right here, and then your legs will be like right here. So you won't be able to like kick them around. Just put on the hard top for the first time in like 2 years. And I got to tell you, still fits. Still fits. Had to put it on for the fitment. Too bad I didn't read all the instructions before. It's like, before you do final welding, do all this stuff. Well, It's a good thing that I got lucky because everything goes on nice. The one thing that I think they wanted it for was to set up these B-pillars to the correct depth and height, because I believe there's a bolt that goes to this one right here, and then it's a piece that goes here. I wonder if it's in here. Ah, it is. So I believe it's for this one to get this tacked in the right spot and welded up so that way it holds out this B-pillar. So that one I had to pull like an 1/8 inch, 1/4 inch that way towards the front. This one was sucked in and I had to pull out quite a bit. There's a screw right on the top. I didn't remember because I haven't had my hardtop in forever, that you get a bolt into this, and this lines up your B-pillar with where it's supposed to be with the hardtop. So now I'll do that one, and then I get to tack the one that goes right here over to this. But have yourself a nice little handy stool to drive with, because and don't drive too fast. Oh yeah. Quick update. I've done a lot of welding since the last little video that I'm going to pitch together. But I got to the point where I'm throwing in these disconnects into these lower ones so that way I can remove them for leg room. And this is what I'm doing is I think it's like 3.5 inches up. I'm cutting them and then removing the amount that I need, right? So that way I can fit these joints in here. I drilled a hole through the tube so I could plug weld. I should have plug welded all of them, but I said screw it. So, and then tacked them in. So I'm going to go ahead and pull this out so I can weld without these Nylox nuts in here. And then it'll make it super easy to weld these because I can just kind of turn them and do whatever I want and weld on a bench. And then I'll have to go ahead and go around these ones. I'll go ahead and show you what it looks like quick with it out. Here it is removed. And then there's the piece right there. Obviously the feet will be bolted into place. See how it kind of comes in a little bit? But once it's bolted into place, gosh dang. Anyways, you get it right back in. And that's why I measured from top to top and left one together. So that way I can throw this one back in, keeping the measurement the same, and then cut it and adjust it so when that flexes in, not a big deal. I am one step away from pulling this back out and painting. I just have to make sure I can situate these legs over the one hole I drilled and double check. So I realized after I mounted it, so I had to redo this plate, which was one I tacked in after it fell off when I first did it, just a little bit. I had to do that back corner passenger again. I had to do this one, and I had to do this one again. And then it was sucked in by like a 1/2 inch. So I made this jig. So I cut some square tubing that I had, welded a butt plate on the end, and then used the bottle jack to press it out. I don't have anything big enough for me to pull off of here to use like a come along. And then I used the same thing in the back here. I set the square tube across these, and then I used the standard jack that came with the Jeep, and I was able to push this back out a little bit too. And then I threw heavier welds on there because I'm going to be re-welding. Well, I'm going to fully weld all these now. So when it comes out, it gets fully welded and then painted. I threw bigger welds on that one instead of the tacks because my tacks kind of sucked. And then I realized before I put it in the Jeep, I needed to put that GPS square thing that they provide. They actually gave me 2, only need 1. And then I had to fit it a bit because it wasn't quite right to get up in there and weld that in. But the cage is fully installed, bolted down, red Loctite. Now they didn't give me the red Loctite, so I just used what I had at home, which was fine. Carpets are in. So let's talk about carpet trimming as far as what I did. So I had to cut, well, I chose to cut, there's a flap here, so I just cut that completely across, diagonaled it, and kind of went around on both sides. And then this wasn't as clean. I didn't cut it straight. I wish I would have cut it straight, but I didn't. That one I did. And then diagonal cut. And then this one, I just diagonal cut around this too. And then here, I got to the bottom straight cut, diagonal, and then cut back in. so that way it can lay back there. So it looks like that, which I think it's pretty good comparatively. So I'm gonna put everything still drying on that back pan. I don't even know if I said anything in this video, but yeah, I got the fuel pump access panel that I'm putting in because I'm gonna relocate the gas tank because I'm dual triangulating the rear. But I got all this in, so that way I'm gonna be putting at least one sub back there, and I wanna get the wire in, but I wanna get the back seat in so I can do some measurement to kind of see space taken up and stuff like that. But not too much trimming of the carpets. Quick update. I chose to switch how I was going to go ahead and do the seatbelt mounting. I bought these that would go underneath here and mount to the bolts that go straight through on these brackets. And those bolts are, you can't see it here, but they're essentially these bolts, and they aren't very thick. And this was going to just be a single one, and it's about 3/16, good hardware, but I wasn't confident with a single bolt to hold in an impact or rollover. So I made my own. So on the outside one, I made it like this, so that way it'll set in there and it'll actually give you mounting, well, it gives me mounting further back. So that way I get a better angle degree on where I choose. You can do multiple if you do it that way. I was going to put the stock seat belts in, I took them out. And then this one goes on the inside set, and there's not this lip on that inside. The nice thing was I was able to go ahead and make this a lot longer, a lot deeper, as you can tell, between here. So that way this reaches outside the outer edge of this on that side. So I can bolt the belt directly to this without having to use any kind of bearing, or it's not even a bearing, but I was using these to set them out, and then that way I can keep it tight and give it a stronger connection there on that side. I'll end up using one on this just to get it outside here because I'm stuck in between these two. There's like a U shape that this has to fit between right here. But this is what I'm going to use. Should be a lot stronger. This is 1/4 inch. I ground it down a little bit to clean it up, but hopefully this will end up with a stronger bracketry than that one for this case here in using those. I didn't want to use this. It wasn't because I wasn't confident in the size, but because this bulk's in the way. You'd have to have it pointing down and then coming up, and if you read all the harness stuff, they want you to actually have it not retaining that way. It just needs to go in a line of that. So I figured this is going to be the best route, and in order for those two bolts to rip out, the whole back of the seat would have to come out. So should be strong enough. There wasn't much online as far as how to mount in a JKU, so this is what I chose. It's what I felt comfortable with, but I think everybody kind of goes their own route because nobody wants to take the liability, and I don't either. There you have it. It's all done up, pretty much buttoned up. I have a little bit of stuff here and there to do. I haven't put the soft top brackets on it yet, but it's all set up. Definitely, hopefully you get an understanding of what I went through, so maybe you'll have a bigger picture of it if you end up doing the same project yourself. The most rearward on the slant that your soft top brackets will go into do need to be sanded smooth to the tube. I didn't figure that out until afterwards. And I wasn't able to kind of sand it super smooth, and I had to spot weld a little bit more back in there. Seats were a challenge, mostly because there's not like a cookie cutter bracket to throw right in there to go ahead and put your lap belt or your 5th point on there. So that's something that you're going to end up having to go through too if you end up doing this. But I'm stoked. I leave for trail here tomorrow. I'm ready to go ahead and get to the trails after all this work. Hopefully I see you guys out there.